everyone, welcome to our vodcast series beansTALK. And today I'm joined by industry experts Janice and Justine, and we'll be discussing inclusion in preschool education today. Shall we start with a round of introductions?
Yes. I'm Justine, Senior Lead Learning Support Educator. I started out in EC, and then when you do a transit to EI.
How about you, Janice?
Hi, I'm Janice. I am a speech language therapist by training. I started my career basically in the world of disability, if I can put it that way.
Wow, cool. Like, very different from me. When I entered upon graduation from my diploma, I thought I'm not going to early intervention. I wasn't entirely against the idea of inclusion, but I was just not super receptive to it. But along my professional journey, eventually leading a school in curriculum or having more experience, I started to gain that sort of curiosity. How can I better support these children? Yeah, so today we're going to talk about inclusion, some perceptions or ideas people have about inclusive education or what exactly inclusion is about. And I compiled them in this pot. Cute, right?
Very cute. Yes, legs. Okay, I'll read it out. I think the child with autism or developmental needs to go to a special school instead. Will be better for them. Early intervention is only for children with delays. What do you think?
Well, maybe I can share my perspective. After learning more about inclusion. Yeah, so I have this dilemma and conundrum, I appreciate the idea and I know the benefits of having an inclusive setting, but I also know children can thrive in EPIC programs. Should we explain what EPIC is? I think people who are new to this realm, what exactly does EPIC mean?
Okay, well, EPIC stands for Early Intervention Program for Infants and Children. So basically, we look at children who are 6 years and below, as well as their families. And these children have a range of developmental needs. So some of them have a medical diagnosis, so they may be medically fragile. So for example, they may be tube-fed, they may be on breathing support. And then we have children with, say, rare disorders, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. A large group of children that we serve are children with autism, and then we also have those with lower supports like speech length delay or global developmental delays. So we actually function pretty much like a school. So these children actually come to our center and it's like their school. Well, the main difference is that the frequency and the duration differs from a mainstream childcare center, right? So in an EPIC center, usually the hours per week is 5 to 12 hours, and they may come for, say, 2 times to up to 4 or 5 times in a week. So every time they're here, it's quite targeted intervention that we give, and perhaps the class size and ratio is different from how a childcare center is like. Yeah.
From my perspective, in the DSLS program, Development Support and Learning Support Program, it's a national program, and the program, basically we have learning support educators, and then we work together very closely with the centers and the teachers to sort of support the children with low needs. It's talking about closing the gaps before the children hit P1.
I actually saw this picture before. It's by Heather Simmons. There's this thing called Service Land where people go for services. They have the special school, the special bus, everything special, right? And then there's the real world, right? And it's actually, this service land is within the real world. But, the real world is not, it doesn't happen that way, like in a segregated setting, right? So whatever we do in our EPIC center or in our therapy sessions doesn't really mean much if it actually doesn't happen in the real world, right? And so there must be this fine balance of having the intensity, doing that very targeted kind of support. But once that's achieved, there is definitely a need to bring it to the real world.
That is inclusion already, right? Inclusive practices. So in my head, I'm like, true inclusion means we must have everybody come together instead of having segregated schools. But there is that benefit of servicing these needs in a specialized place and then having them come together. It's about equity in a sense, right? What I mentioned just now, early intervention, when parents hear of it, they really think are you trying to say that my child has a problem? Yeah, and then they start to feel a lot of guilt. What have you got to say about early intervention? Does it only to address the statement, is it only for children with delays?
Well, I mean, if we talk strictly about early intervention, the whole idea is to intervene as early as possible, and that's because we believe that when a child is young, so 6 years and below, there's actually this ability for the brain to still kind of change their pathways, right, and to be able to reach their maximum potential. And that's why we talk about early intervention. The range of needs is really wide, though. I mean, like you mentioned that the DSLS program actually serves children with lower needs. And I also did mention about children with medical needs, right? So it really depends, right? But if you talk about early intervention strategies, or rather strategies that we use to support children to develop to their maximum potential, right? The developmental milestones, these are strategies that can be used for all.
Like you mentioned, there's so much to unpack, right? About early intervention, inclusion. Maybe we move on to the second statement.
Oh, sure.
I'm a parent of a child with autism. I cannot cope and I don't know what help I can get. I know his classmates' parents are also aware that my child is different and he can get lonely sometimes. I think this is very real.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because I've had parents who have maybe not a diagnosis yet, also maybe just in the process of discovering that the child may probably need additional support. And in the conversation, they break down. And I think it comes back to being connected with the parent, building a little community for support with the parents lah. And it shouldn't be just the parents working alone or advocating for just my one child.
This reminds me of one of the parents that I used to work with, and it's actually not just one instance. They shared about how when they found out that the child has a diagnosis, they actually just exited themselves from all their WhatsApp groups. So because they couldn't take it, because everyone was talking about which kind of enrichment you go for, and they just felt very isolated. Like they're just like, this is not relevant to me anymore. It's just a different path, and they just kind of stopped having friends, and that's something very real, I think.
So what are some avenues of support a parent with a child with diverse needs can look for in Singapore?
If the child is referred then to early intervention services, then very likely within the early intervention service or centre, they would have their resources and support group or networks, right? And many of the centres also have, they organise formal, say, workshops or even bonding kind of activities for families to come together. Online, we can also go to the enablingguide.sg, and that's where there's actually a whole list of resources that you can tap on. Even the whole list of caregiver support groups, it is split by age groups, by disability types, and you can actually then have the link to the Facebook page and their social media and etc.
Oh, then
that's
you can
how
find
you
like
can
support
link
groups.
up to them. Yeah. How about
Okay.
your side?
I guess in the mainstream school, there can be more awareness. It has to come from the leaders of the centres to maybe arrange for to get an expert in, or somebody who is able to have like a parent workshop. And I guess the workshop will be targeting, or the end goal would be to normalize diversity in that sense. Yeah.
So at the start, we have maybe the parent look out for these support groups to address your own needs first. But above that, right, our schools can also play a huge role in helping to build, a welcoming and inclusive environment.
But then, because we are still at this, I guess, beginning journey, in Singapore, we are still at the start of our journey to inclusion. In mainstream itself, I think we need to have platforms, opportunities for discussion, for dialogue.
Sometimes you just need maybe one teacher, one center leader, right, to hold space for the parents, and to just show that you are there. You may not have the solutions, but sometimes it's just about having somebody to talk to, someone who knows their child, know the family context, and just listen out to them.
Yeah. Wow. So two perspectives. Actions taken for the parent to go and look for support, and if it's very overwhelming, whatever we just said, maybe start from the health booklet. Then go to the doctor and find out more. But from an organizational perspective, as leaders, as teachers, this is a real thing that's happening to different family units or families with children with diverse needs. So I think we definitely can step up in some sense. But I do have a lot to unpack also regarding this stepping up thing, because we have teachers' perspectives in the pod. But maybe we can go on to our second statement. Yeah. I mean, our third statement.
Okay. My child's learning will be affected, either distracted by the child with developmental needs or the teacher's attention is diverted.
That's a hard one.
Very real concern. There are so many things to discuss under this, with this statement, right? Maybe the first thing that I want to think about is, share about, is what I learned in university about universal design for learning.
Okay, so we are doing a leadership workshop, and my pet topic for this leadership workshop is universal design of learning. I guess maybe I share my first workshop experience with the leaders. I think it came as something that was very, I guess, very far-reaching for the leaders. It sounded like something very challenging for the leaders. And at the first workshop, we felt that it needed to be broken down to be shared with the leaders that, hey, you know what? You guys are actually doing it already. Because you do have a diverse children, in the classroom. Yeah. So, and it's never one size fits all. I never believe in the one size fits all thing. And you learn through the child's strength and all that. And that's all part of UDL.
Correct. Okay, in principle, for people who have no clue what UDL means, what does it look like?
Okay, so it came from architecture and all that, right? So maybe in layman term, we can give an example about the sliding doors at the shopping centers and supermarket. Why do we have sliding doors now? It's actually a UDL design for people who are on who have the wheelchair and will not be able to push the door or pull the door, and that is a UDL designed for shopping centers.
If you're carrying heavy stuff, you can't open the door either, right? So it's really thinking about how do we design things for universal use, means everybody can benefit from.
So following this statement, my child's learning will be affected or either distracted by the child with diverse needs, or the teacher's attention is diverted. We are now saying that actually on teacher training, right, we practice UDL so that everybody has that opportunity to be in the same space, learning things together. And you don't have to have a diverse need to have a different need for learning, Like it could be, we talk about multimodal ways to teach and how to engage different children. Everybody has unique needs. So the essence of us teachers equipping ourselves with UDL or practices aligned to UDL is so that everyone can be in that same space, learning and thriving together. Yeah, but I think a very real concern that parents with typically developing children is that, then my teacher's attention is going to be on focusing on helping that child with diverse needs be involved, then my child is supposed to receive more, but now it's compromised. Yeah, but when I read, right, so with UDL, there is this particular device I engineered, to help people who have visual impairments cut a fruit.
Okay.
Yeah, or cut something.
Okay.
And that design, right, is so comfortable for typically developed human beings to use too. So essentially, right, when we cater to diverse needs, we are not excluding children who are typically developing. In fact, they might receive something that is even more beneficial for them. Or to add, I read a case study about a LEAP program in the States. So they had 2 different classrooms, one practicing LEAP and then the other one non-LEAP. So in the LEAP classroom, children are together. Children with diverse needs and typically developing children. And the typically developing children, they learn explicitly how to help children with diverse needs, learn how to share, learn how to play together. And then they help look out for these children when they are almost going to injure themselves or something like that. And they take active measures to help these children. Yeah. And the non-LEAP just does not practice that. So when they put a case study in and then they showed children in the LEAP classrooms and children in non-LEAP classrooms a video or something of a child not being able to fix a baby puzzle, like the 4-piece kind of puzzle, right? Very difficult. the children in the non-LEAP classroom said, he's just a baby, he cannot do it. And then children in the LEAP classroom said, oh, I can help him do it, and I know he can next time. Yeah, so it's a whole different shift in how they empathize, how they become collaborative. And in our world right now, with cases of bullying, or
So
even being
rampant now.
so rampant, or being a victim, this skill set in itself, right, of having children with diverse needs in the classroom can help equip children with that ability to problem solve, ability to collaborate, ability to empathize.
Yeah, agree.
And these are skills that will, set a very strong foundation for lifelong success.
Yeah, and I think the fact is, right, how do we want to help our young children have the very early exposure, early understanding or experiences of knowing that, like, hey, everybody is different, it's okay to be different, if that's what we envision as a society, as they grow up into adults, right, what it means to empathize and to be inclusive.
But I must say, it's a lot of work, right?
You're basically serving people with different preferences, right, in a buffet. It is okay to be different, but we are also trying to adapt in that sense that you're different, but hey, never mind, come, let's go to the buffet table and see what you like.
Yes. and the best part of this buffet, right, is that if, let's say, I really have specific dietary requirements, and so happen that a la carte restaurant, right, like, don't have the thing that I want, I will feel so neglected, I will feel so like I don't belong in this space. Then I begin to withdraw. Yeah.
And I think, what you talk about, the LEAP preschool, right? Yes. That's inspiring, isn't it? I mean, it's also talking about the social part of inclusion. Many times when we talk about inclusive practices, a lot of us are very focused on education, right? And how do we differentiate our curriculum for this person, this child. And that can be hard. But actually what really matters at the end of it, perhaps it is the social inclusion part, right? And the preschool is probably just one of the settings where children go very often for long periods of time, where we can imbue some of these values. But sometimes I also often think about, how about in the community, right? Even in the coffee shops, at church, or, just around in society, at the bus stops, right? How do we actually be more inclusive or be more used to having different things presented to us, even like how UDL can be incorporated in all our building structures and all that, which it has actually been incorporated.
Wow,
right?
yeah. I like that. It's very encouraging to know that there are so many steps we've taken to move forward to become a more inclusive Singapore. But then again, the real issue is whether or not we are ready to take that next step, Progression is difficult. Maybe we go to our last statement. Okay. It probably reflects what many teachers think, including myself when I first entered the mainstream school. Yeah.
So this is the juiciest one, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, as a teacher, I know the benefits of inclusion, but I cannot do it alone. We need to work with EI, and it takes a team effort. And we need training, exclamation mark.
Wow. I guess when we talk about training, what kind of training, there are many courses out there. But is it really just going for a course, and going for that training and then coming back to the center, say, hey, I'm trained and I can, I can manage, but is it just that? I feel it goes beyond just training. I know of many teachers who are not trained. And they are so connected with the
parents, is it?
With the parents, with the child who is a dual schooler, which means attending EPIC as well as mainstream. And the child, this particular child, is thriving because of this teacher. She's made that space and that time to connect with the child.
And
I feel that was very important.
Yes.
And in connecting with the child, I feel she's gained that trust from the parent.
Oh, so important.
Yeah.
I look back to my own proper training, right? Like, at the diploma level, I didn't go beyond, I actually have to learn more about the child, the needs of the child, and whether or not it is time for me to raise this issue with a parent. So I went in fresh, with a group of 3-year-olds, 2015 as a beginning teacher. I just graduated. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, this girl, she's not looking at me. Okay. So I thought, very professional of me. I step out of the classroom during dismissal and say like, oh parent, I think your child has autism. Based on the sole fact that she did not make eye contact with me. And it was only a short period of time that I was with her. So as a teacher, I was so inadequate in terms of understanding the needs of children in different diverse needs, right? I told the parent and the parent told me, oh, but she looks at me. I mean, that's one case of me not actually properly practicing what I was trained to do. Maybe my knowledge in special education was not deep enough. I did not have the maybe heart to go and learn, you know. So I think that's that. I mean, for every beginning teacher, if you feel like you are not equipped with that skill set, or that, oh no, I'm not EI trained, so I cannot work with these children, you don't need to have your EI certification to connect with parents or to learn more about the child. Yeah. But I do also believe that in pre-service, right, we should be trained on how to talk to parents. Yeah, I think that's important because what I did was not that great. Yeah.
Or perhaps even like because we are moving towards inclusion, right? So maybe at the EC diploma level or, you know, there should be not just one module, you know, but a little bit more in-depth of, you know, talking to parents about needs or even, you know, thinking about UDL a little bit deeper.
I was just thinking it's probably, there are multiple avenues to do this. Whenever I hear, and I mean I do hear a lot about the need for proper training, right? So what is proper actually? And it's probably something that starts from actually your own perspective, your own mindset about what it means to be a teacher for a child with developmental needs, right? And to ask yourself that. I've met teachers, EC educators who they say, oh, even though I'm not EI trained, you know, but I believe this child has a right to learn, and she just starts from there, lor. And that's probably the starting point. Then you have your formal workshop, you have qualifications, and we all know, right, qualifications. What you need is actually the on-the-job thing, right? And sometimes it may be hard. I know that there are some preschools who have access to EI support, to therapy support, but there are also some preschools without, right? And it's quite hard for them to kind of navigate, right? So besides going for training courses, sometimes it's also to find opportunities to connect with professionals from the EI side, like if you put it that way, and to come together to actually work. So usually for a child with needs, say if they were a dual schooler, like you mentioned, right? So there's probably an EI team actually taking care of the child. So just go to them, you know, get as much knowledge or, you know, understanding of developmental needs as much as you can from them. And it's also a learning process for both parties anyway, right?
Yes.
And it's through that, through conversations, through all these dialogues, right, that actually we learn. I mean, sometimes I think it's such a contradiction in a way, because I talked about how I actually started my work in the world of special needs, right? And actually, if you ask me go to a preschool classroom, I'm very scared. Because, wow, you have like 15, 20 children, you know, and whenever I go to preschool, I'm just like in awe of the EC educators, because it's different skill sets, you know, but we are all very interested in children, right? And we all love children. And sometimes perhaps it's the fact that, you know, people get a bit scared, but they forget that children with developmental needs are children, you know, and children are children, right? And, you know, if you have the kind of heart and the desire to really help the child learn, that probably is the biggest first step. I mean, yeah.
Just riding on what Jenny said, right? I think EC teachers, they must have this confidence as well that they are professionals in their own right. I think many times I have had conversations with teachers whereby they do see, they can identify certain things and some of their concerns are very real, you know, but they're very unsure of, you know, what if I tell the parent and, you know, and I'm wrong in that sense. So I do feel also that EC educators, they need to have confidence in themselves and in what they are already trained for, and which boils down to development milestones, right? There is 101 when we go into certification and all that, and it is basically what therapists are also looking at whether or not, the child is able to hit certain milestones, and the IEPs and sessions are all are sort of planned in order for the child to hit certain milestones and all. So I think if anything, teachers go back to what you already know, professionals in your own right, understanding development milestones.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point for teachers. Okay, so now that we've spoken about like proper training and all that, the statement, right, that I can relate to, right, is that I cannot do it alone. Yeah. So what's your take on this?
I think that's probably true. I mean, if teachers, you're thinking that you can't do it alone, it is true, because this whole idea of working together in a team, right? It's so interesting to me, because whenever we talk about teamwork, etc., right, it actually relates so much to a child, because child development is actually so complex. I can't just, as a speech therapist, I can't just look at the mouth here, right, and then teach him how to talk. But if his body is not ready, then how am I supposed to work on the speech, right? And actually, in my work in the EI setting, that's where I had the opportunity to work with different professionals, and that collaboration then became rich for me to then glimpse all this different perspective about child development. And if we bring that to the preschool setting, right, I wonder, because in collaboration, you basically need at least one other person lah. So, two professionals actually coming together to collaborate. And the whole idea is that you come together as equal partners, because we believe that each party actually brings with them a unique set of experiences and skills, right? And actually coming together to perhaps discuss how do we plan our lesson, how do we incorporate some of the UDL, universal inclusive practices within the setting, right? So, I mean, this is one of the things that, we've been thinking about and really trying out in some of the preschools. And in order to do that, of course, it boils back down to whether we have time, right? And I think this is a very real and a very important thing to think about. I've encountered preschools, so some of our preschool partners, you really see very strong belief in the leadership. I mean, at the leadership level, there's actually a strong belief in actually inclusion. And so these leaders, they structure time and, their schedule such that there is actually space for the educators to come together. So sometimes it may just be with the 老师 and the teacher, right? And they actually have time to come together and actually talk through about the lesson. And it's not just talking about the child with needs, right?
Yes.
It's actually how do we actually plan a lesson together. So when we looked at collaborative teaming as one of the possible model or strategies for inclusion, this was something that we were trying to determine, is it something that's possible in Singapore? What do you think? I mean, got people to team up or not in the EC?
Yes, whether it's LS or a DS, we would prepare some sessions towards the end of intervention, whereby the LS set, all the therapists will go into the classroom and then speak to the teacher to share strategies to see whether or not certain strategies are actually working in the classroom. And that's that collaborative effort in that sense of, I guess, in a way, transference of skills as well. I think one thing we also want to when we have that discussion with the educators, when we are seeing for that child, we say that, though this strategy is for the child, it doesn't need to be specifically for the child, because now you're going to the classroom, you don't want to say that, hey, this is only for, whoever that child is, but it is actually meant for the entire classroom. And that is how, I guess, we are collaborating with the educators in the classroom to say, we are doing this strategy as a one-to-one pull-out intervention, but you can use the same exact strategy in the classroom. So maybe we can set a time and a date, right? And when you feel that when you really need this, I can come in and do some coaching in that sense to say that, how you want to use this strategy or how it can be used for the entire class. So I guess educators, you don't need to be alone. If you have the DSLS program in your center,
or DS Plus,
or DS
or
Plus,
other kinds of inclusive programs, there are quite a couple now.
Please tap on the LSS, the EI teachers that's in the center. I'm very, very sure, 100% sure that they're very happy to share their thoughts and maybe some strategies.
But when we talk about collaboration, though, I got to add this in. We tend to forget about the most important team member. That is the parent. the families, right? And that's actually key because, what does the family bring to the table is actually their knowledge of the child. They know the child best, their likes and dislikes, how they actually behave at home, right? And so, again, tapping on the family's knowledge of the child and coming together to collaborate, what does that look like for you? That would definitely help in how do we actually move towards this inclusion space.
Yes, yeah. I have a personal experience too. As in, my child's is also attending EPIC, and then during the COVID period, the EPIC teacher reached out, or rather, the parent was the one who coordinated this.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, which I thought actually, hey, I'm so paiseh, I'm supposed to be doing the coordination as your child's main teacher, but you initiated this meetup for me to meet the EI teacher, and she gave me her entire resource pack,
Oh.
And it was so useful because when I was helping the whole class do a certain activity, the objective was on mark making, right? He had his own file, and he could do that whole sequence, take the thing out and then put it back to the tray, which is what he practices in EI. And I thought that was a wonderful collaboration, and I have that parent to thank, like this very precious parent of mine. But okay, with all that, I do agree, like time is also so important as a resource. So I wonder, can this work out in Singapore? And there are people who think the same, like, is inclusion just a castle in the sky?
Given that I've been in the land of EC and then now in the land of EI, and I guess I see both. I feel that it is about you need somebody to be advocating, or rather actively advocating for this. What needs to happen is that leaders of the centre, that your teachers need your support. The families in the centre needs your support, but there needs to be dialogue where families, educators, leaders, policy makers come together in that same room to say, hey, things need to happen, but let's talk it out. The only way to move everybody will be everybody holding hands and taking small baby steps to say that, what would be something that's achievable. That true belief of inclusion is truly believing that having certain things and in your center and not just ACTA processes to make inclusion truly come true in that particular center. And then when it cascades down from the leaders, it will go to the teachers who believe in certain things as well. And then you just get a whole bunch of happier children.
I have already seen so much progress actually that has that we've made as a nation. In the past, back when I talked about how that's probably like 18 years ago when I first stepped into Rainbow Centre, right? And that was like I mentioned that it was like a world on its own. Many of our children now with, say, lower needs, they are actually all served in the preschool now, I got to say. And that's actually huge, right? And sometimes it boils down to what it actually means in our day-to-day lives, right? And I appreciate the fact that, we talk about including families in the conversations, right? Because sometimes if a child cannot be in a childcare center, what are the parents going to do about caregiving? It comes down to that sometimes, like logistically, how are they supposed to make their ends meet if they can't have their child in childcare, And if we put ourselves in the shoes, right, of these parents, then it's really trying to understand. Actually, we talk about this lofty dream about inclusion, but it actually impacts people on a day-to-day basis, right? And as long as our heels are on the ground and each step that we take forward leads us towards that dream, I think that's sufficient for now.
Well, there's so much that has been discussed, very real matters, very real struggles that parents do face if they have children with diverse needs. But like what Justine mentioned about inclusion is really that true belief on including everybody, giving them that ability to achieve their fullest self or meet their fullest selves. So to close this vodcast, we've discussed a lot, but to close it, I just want to thank the organizations, the teachers on the grounds, the leaders on the grounds who are advocating for inclusion, and parents who are accepting of this idea, or not just accepting, embracing the idea. It's also about culture, different needs of parents, different income groups. There are so many different needs, and inclusion is all that. It's not solely children with diverse needs. Yeah, so thank you so much for those of you who are standing up for inclusion. It's really helping our future generation benefit from a more empathetic society, a kinder society. So thank you so much for joining me today
Thank
on
you.
this
Thanks for
podcast.
having us.
I'm sure people have learned a lot, and if you have more to share or if you have your own thoughts, you can always comment down below. Like you mentioned, dialogue is important. Constructive improvements and change is important. With that, we've come to the end. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.